Hi guys, I'm Kim,
And I'm Abby.
and this is
Calabasas.
Cultura. Hi Abby, how are
Hi.
you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am so good. Today is gonna be a fun fucking day. I am very excited. What are we talking about today, Abby?
Sirens, mermaids.
So usually we like sit and chat for a second, but we want to just jump in today. We spiraled. And when I say spiraled, I mean we would call each other and just throw up information, freak the fuck out, and then spiral again. So this video is one that we take deeply seriously. It's one that means a lot to us, Abby especially, and I'm so excited to hear the information that you found, your knowledge, your experience, because this is Abby's forte. So Abby is going to take it away. We are also going to have some Reddit stories and all those good things. But Abby, go ahead, my girl. You are leading this one. I'm just a listener.
Yeah, so do you want to read some Reddit stories first?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I found one and it was, oh my gosh, it's kind of short. Not really, but it's really good. It's by Old Supermarket 5657. I was in Montego Bay, Jamaica, and I was sitting on the beach. First of all, Lord, Jamaica and mermaids and sirens. We're gonna
Uh-huh.
get into that. And I was sitting on the beach alone during a silent lightning storm at night, and all of a sudden I felt this intense urge to run into the water. Mind you, I don't swim. After a while, the urge intensified, and I stupidly went to put my feet in the water. I remembered the water was bubbling and it was pitch black, and I immediately felt this sense of dread and danger and ran out of the water. After getting out, I went back to sit down on my folding chair, and out of nowhere, a bolt of lightning lit up the sky and the sea, and I saw a big black figure with long hair not too far away from me, staring at me from the water. After the lightning was gone, the figure was nowhere to be found. I sat there for half an hour after trying to figure out what that figure I saw was, but it never appeared again. I really believe it was a mermaid trying to take me out to sea.
Girl. Okay, I am
That's
so toxic
crazy.
because I would have been like, okay, I'm going. As soon
Mhm.
as I get the inkling, I'm like, okay, bye. Let's go, let's go. So mine is a little bit longer and it is from Thailand. So this is from one amphibian 5831 a year ago. This is something that's been bothering me for years. I'm 20, female, and when I was 13, me, my dad, and my younger brother went to Thailand. We traveled to Pai Pai Islands by boat with one of those travel companies for tourists and stopped by different islands to snorkel. On one of these stops, me and my brother were right next to each other, looking at a fish that I found really cute. To paint the picture a bit better, at this moment, me and my brother were snorkeling in the water right by a floating island, while the others in our group were a bit further away from this island. This island was like a chunk of land that extended downward into the water rather than having a gradual slope. Suddenly, our dad called out for us. Someone in our group saw a small shark, and everyone was gathering around to see it. My brother swam over there, but for some reason, I stayed put and kept watching the different fish that were swimming closely to me. Then something caught my attention. There seemed to be a smaller caves underwater by the shore, and I saw something slowly coming out of there. It was similar to a human head facing down towards the bottom of the ocean. I completely froze up and kept staring. The person kind of floated out of the cage, never facing up towards the surface, and did it really, really slowly. Nothing of this person that I could see was moving. By this point, I could see the back of the head and most of the back. This person had really sparse black hair slicked down to the skull. Their skin looked gray, and their spine was extremely pronounced. I was so sure that I was looking at a corpse, and I completely froze up. I couldn't breathe or move. Time felt like it was standing still. The person kept floating out of the cave. and that's when I started to see its tail. The tail was dark gray and looked like a stereotypical mermaid tail. I blinked multiple times, convinced I was hallucinating, but I kept seeing it. I've never believed in supernatural, but this thing was only a few meters below me, and I could see it so clearly. I felt a sense of danger, and I knew I wasn't supposed to be seeing this, and I was terrified that it would see me and attack me. But the thing never did once face up. Once it was swayed to the side and kept a close distance to the island, and then it disappeared into another cave. After a few seconds, I snapped out of it and quickly swam to my dad and my brother. I burst into tears and frantically told them that we had to get back to the boat right away. Dad asked me what happened, and I told him what I saw. Obviously, he didn't believe me and got furious at me for lying. When we got back to the boat, I told them again and stood by the fact that I wasn't lying. My father told me that he really hoped I was, that it was either a lie or that I was insane and had to be locked up in a mental hospital. I knew how crazy all of this sounded, and honestly, I didn't even believe myself. I decided to tell him that I made it all up. Since that day, I've tried to convince myself that I made it all up, but I've never experienced any hallucinations and I know what I saw. I told others, but of course, most of them thought I made it up. It's so insanely frustrating feeling like you're being gaslit by the entire world, and I truly hope that someone out there believes me. I completely believe this individual.
Yeah, that's so
I
detailed.
Yeah, I
Oh my gosh.
100% believe this individual. Mermaids and sirens exist, and we're
Yeah,
going to talk
for
about it.
sure. For sure, I believe it too. So sirens and mermaids in history, go back as far as 7,000 years. And I'm gonna start in the region of Greece. And, like, Cyprus, Aphrodite, I feel like Aphrodite herself is a great siren archetype. If I didn't mention her, I'd be remiss.
Yep,
But
I lit her candle. I was like, "We're talking about you today."
yeah, yeah. But if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes.
Mhm.
But, sirens in Greek myth were half bird, half woman creatures, not mermaids with fish-like tails like we usually would think. I think a lot of us have known that. If you're watching this, you've probably seen siren lore on TikTok and stuff like that. Which honestly, I looked at stuff on TikTok and a lot of the lore is like pretty accurate. Like I mean, there's not a lot of sludge. But anyways, um, the classical Greeks understood sirens as bird women with hidden knowledge and quote beautiful faces. I thought that was cool. Like everything was a bird besides their face. And they're usually only seen like around the coast and like over waters and stuff like that, which we'll talk about with that leads me into literally sirens appear in the story of Odysseus. And this was written around 750 BCE when Odysseus warned the enchantress Circe of the danger posed by the siren song. Um he then ordered his crew to plug their ears with wax. That's pretty great. But
So
he
you're not
himself
getting me today.
yeah, but he himself wanted to hear the song. So they he ordered his crew to, strap him down and, like, bind him to the, bow of the ship to because he wanted to hear the song. And so once he heard the song, he was, like, begging, like, "Let me out." He was, like, thrashing, like, it's literally documented that he was thrashing, like, wanting to go to the sirens from their song. Um, so he becomes enchanted, but his crew doesn't release him, because they did their job, and they get past the sirens, and yeah, Odysseus is spared thanks to his crew. Um, but also sirens are depicted heavily in, with death, which was shocking to me. I,
Yeah.
never really would have ever thought about that, but it makes sense. So they're known to, carry away the dead from from here to the afterlife in Greek myth. So the siren's role in tomb art is very telling of that. In ancient Mediterranean and Middle Eastern cultures, as far back as 7,000 years ago, birds were often depicted carrying spirits to the underworld. An Anatolian vulture goddess sweeping away the dead with broom like wings is suggested by some to be a precursor to the siren. So that is like pretty much like the origin of the siren in that region. Um, it's pictured on the walls of a 65,000. Lord, imagine if it was that,
Uh-huh.
6500 BC Turkish settlement. Jump ahead a few millennia when it's documented again in 1550 BCE, by which time bawbirds, that's what they are called, ba birds, bawbirds, depictions of departing souls as human faced birds began appearing in Egypt. So it's starting to spread. That connection between bird and dead souls seems to have then hopped over to Greece. So I guess it's like all that whole area has the same pretty much understanding and lore. It's really like meshed together. Writing in the 5th century BCE, the playwright Euripides described the sirens as at the beck and call of Persephone, who is one of the rulers of the underworld, as we know.
So was Persephone in connection to like sirens, or was it just her role in the
Yeah.
underworld?
Yeah.
Uh,
We're gonna talk about that. There's 2 different stories pretty much. So, you know what? Let's just go
well,
ahead and get into it.
mhm.
Persephone, according to Ovid, and that's 43 BC to 17th century AD. That's like around, we don't know the exact time period, but around that. The sirens were companions of young Persephone, and Demeter gave them wings to search for Persephone when she was abducted by Hades. The Sirens were originally beautiful maidens, often described as handmaids and companions of the goddess Persephone. When Persephone was abducted by Hades, Demeter, her mother, sought to find her. In some versions, the Sirens offered to help by flying to search Persephone, so Demeter granted them wings so they could assist in the quest. In other versions, Demeter punished them for failing to prevent the abduction, transforming them into half woman, half bird creatures. So,
Oh my
yeah,
So
it's a
literally Demeter is
mystery.
the reason for sirens.
Yes, in some stories, yes.
That's insane.
But keep in mind, sirens come way before 43 BC.
Yeah.
This, according to Ovid, Demeter did. So
I
that
mean,
was
like, and that's
43 BC. Yeah. So it
that's
was
like
like
in
a couple thousand, a couple hundred years later. Yeah.
but it's also like that's if we look and we're gonna talk more about this of like there are mermaids and sirens in every single
Yeah.
culture.
So it's
And
like
so it's something that is yeah.
there's no
And
one
so it's
true, yeah.
there's no because there are so many stories, because there are
Yeah.
so many encounters. It's so crazy.
Yes.
But we know
Mhm.
they're real. We know they're here.
Yeah,
The way
yeah.
in which they came here and the way in which they were created, there's so many
Mhm.
different stories that we can't really pinpoint exactly where.
One more thing that I wanted to say, about the history of it. Statues of sirens in funerary contexts are attested to the classical era in mainland Greece as well as Asia Minor and Magna Graecia. Hmm. The so-called Siren of Canossa, Canossa di Puglia, is a site in Apulia that was a part of Magna Graecia, was said to accompany the dead among grave goods in a burial. So that's pretty cool. What? She appeared to have some psychopomp characteristics, guiding the dead on their afterlife journey. The cast terracotta figure bears traces of its original white pigment. The woman bears the feet, wings, and tail of a bird. The sculpture is conserved in the National Archaeological Museum of Spain in Madrid. The
Oh
sirens were
my
called
gosh.
the sirens were called the muses of the underworld. Yeah, yeah. Classical scholar Walter Copeland Perry observed, in quotes, their song, though irresistibly sweet, was no less sad than sweet, and lapped both body and soul in fatal lethargy, the forerunner of death and corruption. Yes, and their song is continually calling on Persephone, and that's per Walter Copeland Perry.
They're always
Mhm.
calling upon mother.
Yeah, and that was, he was I mean, that wasn't that long ago. He was born in 1814 and died in 1911,
Oh
so
my goodness.
we've had a fascination with sirens and mermaids for a long time.
Yes, I mean, we still do. Look at Little Mermaid,
Mhm. And
Ariel.
even if they're winged creatures, like, they're always around the water,
Yes.
even if they don't have a tail, like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah,
Mm.
it's pretty cool. But I wanna hear about I know nothing. I know a little bit about, mermaids of the Caribbean and the islands near Africa, like, I wanna know. Tell me.
So, when I say I spiraled, I spiraled. Now, I'm prefacing this with I try to engage in this content in a very historical space.
Yeah,
Um, there's going to be a lot of information and history regarding the African and Caribbean diaspora, a lot of information regarding the transatlantic slave trade, and all of these
yeah,
different, very, very heavy topics, as well
mhm,
as topics that are considered closed practices. So I want to, before jumping in, to really put space, grace, and respect on I am providing this information as someone who is not in a closed practice, who
mhm,
does not practice these specific religions and spaces.
yeah,
So it's very much in a historical content, not in a content of like, oh, this is what you should do.
yeah,
If you are not crowned, if you are not initiated, and if you are not in these spaces of closed practice, you are not to engage in these deities, in these higher powers,
mhm,
in these beings. We are talking about it, and I especially wanted to dedicate time for these spaces. One, because I'm Puerto Rican and I'm learning more about what
mhm,
that looks like in a historical context because I never really got to. And also, when we look into the mythology and history of mermaids specifically, it's very
yeah,
whitewashed.
yes,
And
very
it was
much.
such a beautiful, cathartic, and just like it was an extremely emotional and spiritual experience to be able to see all of these different colors, shapes, and sizes in
Mhm,
history where it's not really shared and respected and venerated in our society now.
yeah,
And so I wanted to ensure that I created a space first and foremost to talk about that, to talk about we're going to talk about different things. I'm going to engage with different practices, but it's in a space of historical context and veneration, not in a space of this is open practices for you guys to do as well. Absolutely not. If you are not crowned, if you are not initiated, you shouldn't be having anything to do with any of this. Anyway,
mhm,
getting into it. So, when I did my research, I researched specifically in the Caribbean islands and coasts of Africa. And it was so incredible to see the almost like all of this information was so braided into every aspect of the Caribbean and African diaspora. Like, it was
mhm,
just a beautiful representation of how cultures combine and how they create a whole new space.
yeah,
So when I did research on sirens and mermaids, there wasn't really a clear difference between the two.
mhm,
Um, the words were kinda used interchangeably, like sirena is a siren, but it was also a word that was used for mermaids. But there was a very consistent space of what a siren or slash mermaid looked like, which was the upper half was a very beautiful woman, a very beautiful, soft-skinned woman, and the bottom half was the half of a fish, the half of the fin, the tail, all of those different things. But it was in every single culture that I looked into.
yeah, it really
The
is.
first one I really, really, really wanted to talk about, is Mami Wata. I when I saw this first, I was like, "I recognize that name. I don't know how I recognize that name." And I remember when I was a kid, I was singing a song and it had Mami Wata on it, and I'm like, "I don't even like, I didn't even know what the hell this was, but I was singing a song
That's
about it." So
crazy.
it was the coolest thing to kind of see that, like, that connection. I didn't even know about it. So The mythology of Mami Wata. So this name was used not only to identify mermaids in West and Central Africa in the Vodun religion,
Uh-huh.
but it was also to identify the deity Mami Wata. And I think what was so cool about learning about her was the disruption of the Disney narrative of like what mermaids are supposed to be, what they're supposed to look like, how they're supposed to be these like fragile Disney princesses of like
Definitely.
when there is a lot more complexities that come with working with water spirits or deities of the ocean or of the water. And when people would connect with others and teach about Mami Wata, it was either with fear or with respect and reverence of the understanding like she is here. That's neither here nor like the indifference of she is here. This is not a fairy tale. It's not like she is part of this space and we
Yeah.
respect that as it is. Um there was a lot of favoring and blessings of women. So when working with or for individuals that are in this close practice, emphasizing that venerate her, there's a lot of blessings and favor to women within healing, fertility, and wealth. But similar
Mm.
to other deities that we spoke about, there's also that other aspect of wrath, that other
Mhm.
aspect of I can heal, but I also can create sickness. Um, and so when having spaces of worship for her, it was a lot of the healing, but also fertility to create more powerful women. Women were very much in the forefront of this practice. It's very much a matriarchy of like I am blessed for procreation. I am blessed for the growth of my family tree by having more female children. And so that was a big piece of it as well. Um, and so this started in West and Central Africa, but due to the transatlantic slave trade, it started to kind of grow and spread into the Caribbean, so into the Dominican Republic, into Cuba, into Puerto Rico, and that's where we start to see more of La Sirene, the siren.
Mhm.
Um, and it was really, really informative to see this, and it's also the understanding of we have a lot of our history, a lot of our practices, a lot of these beautiful, incredible spaces of worship were came from Africa and Central Africa, and we have this because of the reality of the transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah.
This melding of cultural practices is due to that, and so there needs to be that space of reverence and respect for we were given these spaces, and they came from a very, very dark space. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about the transatlantic slave trade in connection to mermaids and sirens. So there's this article that I read, and it was by Edie Murr, and it was such a beautiful representation of how this culture came from somewhere and that we need to respect that culture, and it's become a bit whitewashed, especially in that more Disney caricature vibe,
Yeah.
and it's called actually Black Mermaid Folklore has been around long before The Little Mermaid, and as I was reading it, it was such a really cool, like, it makes you stop and think and recognize that in order to honor spaces, we have to look at the history.
Yeah.
We have to hold accountability that if we are putting ourselves in positions of connecting with other deities, other practices, we need to look at the history. We need to honor and acknowledge that this came from somewhere, that
Mhm.
we are not just collecting information and going our merry way. We need to build knowledge and understand that these things came from somewhere, most specifically from West African and Central African folklore. And then I also wanted to put a little like piece of not only was there Mami Wata, which was connected to the ocean, there's also Yemaya, which is connected to Santeria,
Mhm.
Oshun, which is Nigeria, belief systems, Iara, which is Brazil. Again, closed practices.
Mhm.
I am stating them to ensure that this is a space where we are all hearing of all cultures. Closed practice. No. Okay. As we keep going,
Mhm.
I went on a spiral. So, I wanted as I was learning more about this, I really, really, really wanted to pay homage to Puerto Rico. That's where I was born. That is my home. That is where I'm most connected to my spirituality, to my cultural understanding. And this is where I learned more about sirenas, the water spirits. And it came from a Taino folklore. And her name is Aikaya, and she is a Taino woman. This is in connection to Cuba and Puerto Rico. So this was a woman who she was cursed to be a mermaid from her tribe, and there was this perception of like jealousy of like she had a very beautiful voice, she was a very beautiful woman, and there was a
Mhm.
space of jealousy, but there's also the perception of a female awakening because there was that idea of like she was growing into her womanhood, and
Mhm.
because she was desirable, it's the space of turning her into something that's monstrous. But Aikaya is a Taino word for she with a lovely voice. So when she turned into a mermaid, she then used her voice to sing and lure people into the ocean. So she was one of
That's
the first mermaids in Puerto Rico. And if you want to learn more about her, there is this incredible story. I'm going to get the name of it. It's called The Mermaid of Black Conch, and it's by Monique Rafi. And it is about Aikaya and her story.
that's cool.
It's so cool. Um, the next piece I wanted to kind of get back into the transatlantic slave trade because again, a lot of these cultures that we mesh and we intermingle is due to this slave trade.
Mhm.
And it I would only be able to do this if I gave and acknowledged the history behind it. The Simbi of Haiti, and these were water maids or water spirits who, in the folklore, tried to help those who were thrown to drown during the slave trade. And so when I was reading about this, it was a really heavy kind of folklore that was trying to recognize the loss of these thousands of lives, and instead of like almost like a it felt like as I was reading about the folklore, it was almost as in a way to honor the dead, honor those who lost their lives in
Mhm.
something so tragic
Yeah.
and disheartening and disgusting. And so as I was reading it, there was 2 different stories of it was either them leading them to their afterlife and showing them safety and honor as they're going into their afterlife. But there was also the story of the Simbi people or the Simbi water sprites who was able to rescue those that were thrown into the ocean and bring them
Mhm.
back to their homeland. And so it was that idea of pretty much like as I was reading it, it was such a beautiful and like beautifully haunting interpretation of honoring and respecting those who passed in such a big tragedy. Um, and so I wanted to make sure that we had some time to really talk about that of like
Yeah.
while we see these Disney characters or we see these mermaids in pop culture and it's so romanticized and it's so like it's so Disneyfied, it's so
Mhm.
infantilized, but a lot of these things came from pain. A lot of these things came from tragedy. When we go into like Aikaya, she was meant to symbolize female sin because she used hypnosis to lure men. And so in these cultures and in these spaces, in order to recognize the beauty and the power of the mermaid and the siren, we also have to recognize the pain and the tragedy that led them here. Um, and it's a
Yes.
twofold kind of situation. And I think that's also what I loved so much about learning about this. There's also so I showed you the article, I showed you the story. There's also an episode of Love, Death, and Robot. And I know a lot of people this was really, really popular like a year ago, but you need to watch this episode. It's called Hibaro. And Hibaro is Puerto Rican slang. Other spaces use it, but the way in which I understand it is Puerto Rican slang for like one of those like a poor boy, like somebody who is in poverty, things of that nature.
Mhm.
And it's the final episode of Love, Death, and Robots, and it is about a siren who is kind of fighting and trying to lure a knight, and they end up literally killing themselves. Like they end up harming themselves to the point that they both are fully just
Oh
gone,
gosh.
and it's supposed to be a connection to the Taino colonization, it's also in connection to Ecuador and Peru and how the European colonization and conquistadores that took the gold, that took the sugarcane, that pretty much ripped apart these lands, these spaces,
Mhm.
and it is almost like a destruction of colonization. And so I thought that that was the biggest and most clear representation of how sirens came to be, how these spaces came to be.
Yeah,
And then
agree.
the last one, because again, spiraled, was
Mhm, yeah,
indigenous seal women. So if we're talking about mermaids, if we're talking about sirens, we also got to talk about the seal women because this was another version of colonization and conquering and almost like ripping apart
mhm.
what wasn't theirs. Can you
Ugh,
see
I
the
know what's
pattern?
coming. I know what's
Yeah,
coming.
can you see the pattern? I can't talk about these things without calling shit out.
Mm,
Um, so indigenous seal women were also called Selkie, and this was Scottish, Irish, Faroese, and they were called seal people as well. And so the myth or the folklore of it is that they would shed their seal coat and transform into a human. Now, one of the most popular stories of this, like of the Selkie people, was a Selkie woman who shed her skin to sunbathe, and a human chief ended up stealing her coat and pretty much bribing her or forcing her into marriage and to have children. And so, because she didn't have her coat anymore, it was the situation of she had to go with him. And so they
yeah,
ended up getting married and having children. And years later, one of her children shows her where it is. And so she ends up getting her coat and leaving her family and her husband forever. And it was again like that space of you took what wasn't yours and now the earth is trying to rebalance and re-regulate. And it
yeah.
doesn't like there's a lot of pieces of like, well, she's a villain, she left her family, but it's
Mhm.
like the villainization like that happened to her in order for her to be free. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah, yeah.
crazy.
That's
And the
so
last
cool.
piece is Christopher Columbus.
Mm,
Ugh, tomatoes,
it's
tomatoes,
gross.
tomatoes. We got to talk about it. 1493, he wrote in his journal entry all about seeing three mermaids. And he stated that they were ugly, that they weren't as beautiful, and their song wasn't as pretty. It was in the Dominican Republic. Man saw manatees
Yeah.
and swore left and right that they were mermaids.
Mhm,
There's also a lore that he did something to them. I can't say if it's accurate or not, but for
mhm,
my peace of mind and for me to sleep better at night, I like to think about it that way.
mm.
Um, but yeah, so this is all about the indigenous spaces in terms of water sprites, mermaids, and sirens.
Yeah, I think that's like, all of those stories are another reason why, like, siren the siren archetype and energies and entities, they're so good to work with
Yeah.
for justice, like, justice
Yes.
of all like, seriously, I feel like
Yes.
that oh my gosh.
Ah.
You wanna win something? Get work with a
Mhm.
mermaid, literally.
There's also just that, like, deep divine femininity, and, like,
Yep.
not even just, like, the like, when I was reading about it, it's, like, the dark feminine and, like, the
Mhm,
duality of the dark feminine and the light feminine, and now I see why you work so closely with these
mhm.
spirits. So, Abby, I would love to hear so much more, like, I work a little bit, but I know that you have such a bigger understanding of what this looks like, so for you, how do you work with mermaids and sirens? How do you work with these spirits?
Literally, like, I feel like that's such a big question because and it's not at all because literally everything. You can work or I feel like I can work with mermaids and sirens for everything because 'cause they're good to work with for abundance. Like, if you go in the water and you're wearing jewelry, like, you're going into their domain, like, they think that's an offering for them. They love shiny stuff, they love trinkets, like, that lore is so true. So
Yes.
true. So if you're giving them the tiny things and being respectful, like picking up trash on the beach, their home, and leaving like good offerings like flowers and let's see, like honey, like sweet stuff like that, fruit, sweet fruits like watermelon, apples, stuff like that. You can go to the ocean, the rivers, any body of water, and with respect ask to work with a siren. Maybe not ask right off the bat, like for something,
Yeah.
but like work up a relationship with them. Sit there, meditate with them, like, or with the archetype.
Yeah.
Cause I feel like sirens are so good to work with when it comes to glamour. And glamour is also something that you can use like, if I had to pick one, like, branch of magical practice, I guess, to use for the rest of my life, it would be that because you can use glamour to get anything you want, and the whole premise of magic is bending the will of something
Yeah.
to get what you want, and I feel like that's what glamour is all about. You can use glamour for money, success, visibility, literal beauty to get what you want, and I feel like sirens and mermaids have that duality, like you said, of dark and light feminine, and they're gonna get
Yeah.
what they want
I
because they
agree.
have been wronged and they want justice. They seek justice, they seek revenge. If you wrong somebody and they got sirens on their team, honey,
And
uh-uh,
so
I'm
when we
sorry.
engage is right? So when we engage, do you feel like it's an open practice for everyone? Do you feel like anyone could work with
100%.
sirens? Okay.
Yes. Yes, because
Yeah.
sirens are all around the world. I mean, there's mermaids in Scotland, like, there's
Yeah.
mermaids in all like, literally all over. There's
Yeah.
lore of it in Australia, like, they're just, like they're literally all over. And,
Yeah.
I honestly, like, look into your ancestral background and then look at what sirens are in your area and what the lore is behind those of where you are now or where your ancestors were, um, yeah, like, you can I feel like I mean, come on, there's sirens on the Gulf Coast, so,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's what I
No,
think.
I
That's what I
completely
think.
agree. I completely agree.
And they're just
Unless
wonderful energies to have around, like, seriously, I
yeah.
think, and they're very, very protective, I feel like.
I think especially I feel like especially if you are female presenting or
Mhm.
engage more in your feminine energy, I feel like it
Yeah.
is such a safe space. Um, again, I think that I agree wholeheartedly with you, Abby,
Mhm.
unless it is of like African diaspora, Santeria or other closed
Yeah.
practices.
Yeah.
Um, those are more specific, like, you engage if you are in those practices, if you are an
Right.
initiate, if you
Right.
are crowned, if you are a high priestess, but when it comes to, like, the ancient Greece or ancient Greek sirens or sirens in general that are not in those spaces, I
Mhm.
think 100%, but it's also understanding what you're going into,
Yeah.
because there is that the duality of the dark and the light. There is the duality of, like, while they're protective, while they are loving, while they can help with glamour, there's also the mischievous. There's also the seeking the jewels, the and
Mhm.
so I think it is so important to leave offerings. And I don't think it's like a here you go, here's one mango, give me everything
Yeah.
I want. It is a relationship that just like any other being or higher power that you work with, it's a relationship that you build with time, with trust, with the veneration. And
And,
so
like, ask them, like, like, you know what I mean? Instead of just, like, leaving an offering and expecting something back, like, it's for real a relationship, like, you have to it's a two-way street. Like,
yeah,
they have to wanna work with you, like, you know what I mean? I wouldn't just ask, like, right off the top, but I
yeah.
feel like you guys know. You would
Yeah,
just right off the top.
you
Yeah,
got it.
yeah.
And so, specifically, Abby, for you, how do you personally engage with the siren energy? I know you said like glamour, like is it glamour spells? Is it oil? Is it spray? Like what is it that you do or create or meditate
Mhm.
on?
Yeah. So, I have like I'll create like altars, literally creating a whole altar for your glamour practice or like for your sirens.
Yeah.
Seashells, obviously, pearls, stuff like that. Um I like to if I'm not by the ocean and I for first of all, I would love to like, the ideal is having ocean water, but we can't all be at the ocean. So I think, like, pink Himalayan salt in some
Yeah,
water is such a sweet offering for them, and, like, you can, invite them into your space and, like, meditate and put, some waves in the background. I think they'd really love that. And
yeah.
also, like, if you're unsure of, like, where you come from or your ancestors or where they come from, working with
Oof.
sirens and mermaids is just like working with any other land spirit. Like, a siren and a mermaid is a land spirit. Just because it's far out in the, "Oh my god, I'm not even near the ocean."
Oh my gosh,
Girl,
I
go to the
love that.
river. Go to the river. Go to a man-made lake, bruh. Go. I bet you
Yes.
if you put like, come on, it's the archetype, it's the entities, it's whatever you want it to be. Once
I
you
got
put it out there that you want to work with this archetype, this energy, this entity, whatever you personally in your practice want to call it, I personally, believe that they're spirits and whatnot. But when you reach out to them and when you give offerings, you're going to hear something back. They love shiny things, of course. You're going
yeah,
to hear
they
something back. Do some
oh,
divination with them, some tarot
yeah.
with them. You'll be surprised.
I love and
What answers you get back.
I love the idea of really looking into your own, like, heritage, your own, like,
Yeah,
geographical spaces, your cultural
and look
spaces.
at the
Just
lore from those spaces,
yes,
and that's how
yes,
you work with them, like
yeah. I never knew about Aikaya, and now that I know about her, I want to learn so much more, like,
yeah, that's
I'm
cool.
going to read the book, especially for those of us that our culture is not in the forefront of society and is not,
Mhm,
uh the main character of society. I think it's so important to, like, put in the work to research where you come from, who you are in those
yes.
spaces, and you're gonna find so many beautiful stories. Like, it was so incredible to read about
Mhm,
a Taino woman in connection to this, and I never knew about it, and to, like, see my culture in that way, and so I agree wholeheartedly, Abby, like, to look into your spaces, to
yeah,
engage in your practice in that way. It's also veneration of your ancestors when you do this.
mhm,
When you look into your genealogy and you look at the history and folklore in it, if you want to
mhm.
do that as a way to venerate your ancestors, do that too, and so, like, you're look at that, you're doing 2 things at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, but
So,
there's
Abby
just
oh,
mermaids and sirens in every culture, so literally,
yeah,
you're gonna find something.
there is. For my last question, Abby, before we read a couple more stories and then jump into,
Uh-huh.
reading, how can we tap into our inner siren and our inner mermaid?
Yes, so how you can tap into your inner siren. To be
Oh,
honest, I would do a big fat tarot spread if we're being real to tell me what
yeah.
I should do. But if I want to tap in with my inner siren, I would put on my favorite strappy heels, my sexy dress, my winged eyeliner, and my blue eyeshadow. Very important. Very important.
Yes, that nice
And
blue.
light your come to me candle, invite the sirens in, leave a little offering of some milk and honey, and do your makeup
Ooh,
and go out and see what happens. See what happens.
mhm.
And then also, I recommend Anastasia Bonnet and
Yeah.
her shop Moonlight Sage. Oh my
Ah,
gosh, she has so many good oils, but the Salacia oil is such a good one. It's a mermaid oil, and oh my God, it's good
yes.
for luck, success, money,
You
visibility,
put her
uh,
all in that, and it's,
like
10 out of
literal
10.
glamour. Like, seriously, I feel like it's so versatile. I think that's why sirens and mermaids are so underrated. Like,
They really
they're
are,
so
they're my thing.
versatile. Yeah, I agree.
Oh, we're getting to the end. Do you wanna read another Reddit story?
Yes, I
Okay.
will. Let's see. This one's a little long, and it's from
Okay,
a
I'm ready.
deleted account. So
Ooh.
this was around a year ago in July 2018. So you can see when this was posted. I was on a trip to India with some of my friends, and we were in this rented yacht in the Arabian Sea slash Indian Ocean for the night. A lot of us were drunk except for me. I stayed away from the bottles all day because of a bet with a friend. He bet me around $20 that I couldn't go 2 vacation days without drinking or smoking. Early on in the night, some of my friends were more intoxicated, and they decided to look out at the vast sea and yelled excitedly that they had seen some mermaids around us, which turned out to be dugongs, marine mammals commonly mistaken for mermaids. This was around 11:30 to 12 at night. I helped them get back inside with the others. The party had died down around 2 or 3 a.m., and I decided to enjoy the view of the sea with a good old late night snack, barbecue lunch chips. I was about halfway through the pack when I noticed these strange human-like figures coming up out of the water, and I, assuming they were mermaids, well, they were actually mermaids, seen by my drunk friends, decided to get a closer look. They formed what I think was a circle around the boat and drew closer. Now I could now I could tell that they had long dark hair. It was a moonlit night, a full moon, and that they had grayish white faces. They did not rise very far above the water. I could only see their shoulders at most. I was assuming they were somewhat ugly mermaids in poor lighting and tried waving at them. What the heck? At which they all stared in my direction. They began to emit what I now feel was the most ghastly wailing I had ever heard. It was oddly mesmerizing, and I inched closer to the railing. I felt a strong urge to join them in the water, but I started back away when I saw their eyes. They had no irises or any white, just plain black. Their mouths seemed to grow in size, and that was when my eyes convinced my ears not to give in. I dropped my chips and pulled away from the railing and fought my urges to jump over. I ran inside, shuttling, shutting the door behind me and falling to the ground. Everyone else was asleep, and the wailing just stopped abruptly. I was far too afraid to go outside at this point, so I decided to lose the bet and have a fairly good amount of and I had a fairly good amount of Henny and rum, plus half a blunt that my friends left. I passed out, and the next morning, no one was missing, so that was good. No one believed me, though, and we had to head back to the hotel in the afternoon. That was it.
During a full moon night,
Yes,
you're in an have you ever watched H2O?
hello? They were the Mako mermaids, obviously.
Clear. Like, come on. Like,
Hello?
no. Oh my
Clear.
god. Clear
That was Clear.
condensation. That was
That was
peak
them.
everything.
That
That
was
was
Clear.
them. They were yeah, that was Clear. So, yeah.
Oh no,
Oh
Clear.
no,
What are you doing out in the full moon?
Clear. Dead ass though. Like you're literally out in the middle of the ocean in the moonlight, full moon,
No
a little
irises,
intoxicated.
black eyes. Lord.
She was using her night vision.
Mhm.
It's like holy shit. I would freak out. Okay. If it was in
Uh-huh.
the daytime, I feel like I'd be a lot less like I'd be like, oh my goodness, you're so beautiful. I'm gonna
Yeah.
walk away. But at night, I'd be like, yeah, I do not go into the ocean at night.
Mhm.
I never have, never will.
No.
I don't know, man. I
I
want to be able to
might
see
dip a
what's in
little
front of
bit,
me.
but
I dip
not too
one
much.
toe.
Mhm.
That's about it. Mm-mm, mm-mm. Ugh, clear. Okay. So this is by Big Juggernaut 3167, and it was about a year ago. I grew up near the ocean. My father was a fisherman, and our life back then was hard, so we were taught how to fish and dive. I was a kid back then, so I consider myself to not be efficient in diving. My brothers, however, were basically pros when it came to that. Now, what I'm going to tell you is that this was not a one time experience. I had multiple encounters with them while spending the first 15 years of my life beside the ocean. But at that time, I still didn't have enough knowledge about them. Not until we moved out of the community. So, them is referring to mermaids and sirens.
Mhm.
Our community is small, and because we live on a remote island, access is limited. And the primary source of food and income was the ocean. All my life, I knew that there were creatures of the ocean. It is an open discussion for everyone there. That's why I was secretly shocked that they're still considered myths when my community talks about them as if they were part of our daily lives. When I was around the age of 4, I would accompany my family when they were fishing. I was around 7 when I realized there seemed to be a schedule for fishing. We would always sit in boats. Usually, we would have two boats, one for my brothers, my dad, and me, and another for my aunt and my uncle. One afternoon, I shared a boat with my aunt and my uncle, and one of my brothers. We were the only ones there at the time. And while my uncle and my brothers were diving, my aunt and I would sit in the boat waiting for them. Whenever it started to get dark, my aunt would whistle, tap the boat, or even dive herself to inform her husband and my brothers to get out of the water as soon as possible. During this time, my brother and uncle maybe were not aware of the time, nor felt and heard the signal, so my aunt told me to stay put on the boat as she swam to inform them. While I was sitting in the boat alone, I saw a hand. I don't know if it was really a hand or not, popping up at the side of the boat. Basically, it had long fingers, and they were doing nothing, not even signaling for me to come, not luring me. It was just holding on to the boat. I just ignored them as I was warned to just not mind what I'd mysteriously see or hear. After a while, my aunt, brother, and uncle emerged, and we got home. After eating dinner, I told my dad what I saw, and my mother said, "It was probably just trying to balance the boat and probably guarding you too. Make sure you pay your respects when you come back tomorrow." And I did. When I came back the next day, my father set some of the fish he caught free when it was near sundown. And these continued for years. When I would dive myself, my brothers were with me, and they would grab me whenever I was turning in the wrong direction, because according to them, there was a portion where we would cautiously explore to give respect to them, or to the guardians, as I compiled it every time. Whenever I was in the boat alone, sometimes it would shake, and a hand would just pop up as if they were supporting it. And I just assumed that they were guarding the boat so it wouldn't flip, and they were just waiting for their turn to hunt. Sometimes I would hear splashing beside the boat, even though my family was in the deep. And these events only occurred when it got too dark and we were late. Whenever we left before sundown, it did not happen, so I assumed that these were normal and that the guardians of the sea basically ruled the waters. We were just asking for resources. After years, we moved out of the community as I got an opportunity to study in the city, and that is when I learned about the idea of mermaids and stuff. And they were considered myths, when all throughout my childhood, I just thought this was normal, as these are Mother Nature's rules that we had to respect.
That's so cool.
I read that and I was like, that is the most incredible,
Yeah,
like, story and just
that's
like
my
the
favorite.
oh my god, and I love that just like, yeah, this was normal. This was Guardians of the Sea. This was and it wasn't that we were like more than them. It was this is their space and they're allowing us to do to
Oh,
take resources from it. I also love the idea of like the offerings of them bringing back fish for them. And so
yeah.
it's so cool to see in other spaces how like what you were talking about, Abby, of like bringing offerings, like making that very like cohabitated kind of bond is
Mm,
so important because at the end of the day, their job is so important in the sea. Like they can be a guardian, they can be protectors
I
if you
agree.
create that space and that relationship. Love mermaids.
Mhm. Me
Love
too. That
them.
was a
They're
good
so
one.
misunderstood.
Mhm.
Ugh. Are you ready for the reading?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be using Roses, Dust, and Ashes. It looks like this.
Ah,
So
I'm so
cute.
excited. That's a beautiful box.
Mhm. And the cards are cute too. They look mermaidy. It's like
They
pirates.
do.
Wow. Sacrifice. Oof.
Ooh.
Sheesh. That's what it looks like.
Oh
Let's see
yeah.
what it means. I mean, that's let's see. This kind of cross design is a Celtic cross. It features a circle around the intersection of the crossbars and often decorative features such as biblical motifs. It represents the unity of all things, both spiritual and physical. The circle often has an infinity knot pattern as a backdrop. The sacrifice card is a reminder that sometimes we must make sacrifices in order to achieve our goals. This willing, this willingness to give up something valuable for a greater good can be a pretty tough pill to swallow for most of us. Look beyond your immediate desires and consider the long-term benefits of making trade-offs. Y'all need to
Yep.
start working with the sirens. This
Yep.
card
That was
suggests this card suggests that by giving up something in the present, you can create a better future for yourself and those around you. It is a powerful reminder that sacrifice is not easy, but it is fundamental for personal and spiritual growth. That's a good one.
that is an incredible one. That one literally makes me feel like a, like
Makes me feel like give an offering to your local siren today. Thank you.
TM, trademark. Thank you.
What were you
Literally.
saying,
That
Kim?
was literally like, "I like shiny things, get me some fruit."
Yep. Mhm.
Awesome.
Make a
This was
sacrifice.
awesome. Thank you so much, Abby, for, like, sharing
That
all of
was
this
so
amazing
fun.
information. This was so informative, and
Mhm.
yeah, we gotta go give offerings today.
Yes, let's go. And
Ah,
if there's another, like, spirit y'all wanna talk about that's like a siren that
yes.
y'all are interested in, please let us know.
Tell us.
Yeah.
Comment. As always, comment, support us, like,
Mhm.
share, do whatever it is you gotta do. If you wanna
Mhm.
send us any email stories, it is
Yeah.
calabasascultura@gmail.com. If you wanna send anything our way, comment, like, follow. We have our socials, TikTok,
Mhm.
Instagram, we have Patreon. All of it is at Calabasas Cultura or at Calabasas Cultura 1. Thank you guys so much. We gotta go give some offerings. So my name is
Yep.
Kim,
And I'm Abby.
and this is
Calabasas.
Cultura. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.